When you come over the Arlington Bridge, the Salter Bridge, when you come into this community, you'll see, old vehicles, busted vehicles. You'll see a lot of garbage in some areas, a lot of burnt houses, a lot of boarded up houses. There's no fast food places in the North End. They're all on the outskirts. All there is the convenience stores that jack up the prices. You will see the neighborhood kids out in the evenings mostly, not during the day. In the summertime, they sleep all day. But if you go on Main Street, you'll see a lot. You'll feel like you're in a different place. You'll see a lot of the realness of it, the rawness of the North End. I've witnessed a lot of addiction, a lot of poverty, and all the problems and symptoms that come from that.
Poverty takes more than one shape. It's not just one. I can't just give one answer. There's obviously different reasons for certain types of poverty. It could be generational stuff. It could be certain types of addictions or, lifestyle choices.
I think sometimes it's easy for us to think about poverty usually as, homelessness, people that are struggling on the streets or living in tents or in homeless shelters. And that is certainly the most in-your-face kind of poverty that we have in our city. But the reality is that there's many, many tens of thousands of families that are also living in neighborhoods all over the city, not just in the inner city, that are just struggling with economic poverty, but that are also struggling with some of the cycles, whether it's domestic abuse or just violence or addiction.
There's just so many things that people don't realize could be poverty without thinking third world country stuff. Nothing to eat, nowhere to live, no clothes, no shoes, all that kind of stuff. That's a part of it, but that's not all of it.
So no one's story is simple. And I think we're afraid of nuance as a society. And poverty and the reasons for poverty are not either simple. They're complex. You will never solve it if you look for a simple path.
I used to run around on my own down the street over here on Aberdeen. And myself, I was caught up into doing trouble and getting into mischief, going to jail in and out. Why people join gangs and that? Because they feel like they need a family that protects them. My reason was because I have a lot of friends and family, and it was mostly in gangs. And then I joined because I thought it was a part of me. I came across St. Aidan's Christian school when I was probably growing up, 10. That's when I started coming to school here. I started coming to drop-in, started learning more about their youth and what they do. Yeah, I have family who were coming here, and one of them is my brother. He showed me that change is possible. Then you can do it if you believe in it. It's really amazing that you can fall off a path, then re-find it just by believing in yourself, in the Lord, and your family.
I was homeless with me and my 6 kids. Can't say that we made it on the street, but I actually pawned everything that we had, and we went into a hotel. And there was no complimentary breakfast, there was no lunches, suppers. We had to buy everything. I had to make sure my kids fed every day. I was sitting there and I was praying to God, and I was saying, Lord, what am I going to do? Where am I going to take my 6 kids? Money's running dry. And I got a card fell on the floor, and I picked it up and I looked at it, and it said Trevor, and I'm like, who's Trevor? And then I was like, that guy I prayed for at Church of the Rock? So I went to Church of the Rock Prayer and Praise one day, and the pastor told us to go grab a stranger and pray with one another. So I found this man and I prayed with him, and that happened to be the guy on the card. So I picked up the phone and I phoned Trevor and I told him my situation. And he's like, pack your bags, I'm coming to get you right now. I ended up staying with him, me and my kids, for 3 months. And then he just became a good friend after 10 years. And then he passed away. He was so devoted to God. He was very kind and generous and everything. And I think that just gave us hope that even if you're homeless, God's got your back. You know, he knows what you're going through. He was like a spiritual father to me, and my grandfather to my children. So having someone in your life like that is just really amazing.
Grew up just behind us in the D for a good majority of my childhood, but that came with a lot of challenges. Like my parents were drinking a lot, drug use a lot. My family, my brothers, we always stuck together, and that got us through a lot of the times. Moving around a lot due to poverty. My mom wasn't working at the time, so 6 months here, 6 months there, moved to a new place, so I was never really home. We got about 15, 16, I moved out, wanted to be on my own, and made some questionable decisions. Sold drugs, did this and that. Also held a job though, so proud of that at least. But then, as I got to about 20, my dad passed away, and I fell really bad into depression and drug use and just a lot of anger. I neglected my firstborn for quite a few years, just being selfish. And then about 7 years ago, I just decided I had enough, and then I met Miranda, my partner, and we started a family and worked on bettering ourselves to the point now where we're getting our own house and we're doing what we got to do for our family. My tech lab teacher, Jay Woman, was a very big positive influence in my life during my teenage years. Kept me out of trouble, and joined volleyball, and that found a big passion for that, as well as cooking through him. And again, dealing with inner city youth alive, and since I was about 10 years old. I remember just hearing it from my cousin, like, we're going to check out this place, we go do stuff every now and then. And I see the day, remember the first time I ever went, we went horseback riding at Camp Assiniboia. And it was always just positivity like that kept me going back and staying off the streets and staying out of trouble. And the people there, forged relationships with them who were always really positive and really welcoming and loving. And that was a sense of stuff we missed at home.
I didn't even know there was a world outside the North End before, until I was about 12 or 13. I started to take the bus, the Winnipeg Transit bus, out of the North End, and I would go to downtown, and I would see all these places. I remember just thinking I could just get on a bus and go until it's over, until it's the end of the line, and just get out and walk around. Because your perspective is so limited in the North End that you don't really realize that things can be different for you until one day somebody comes into your life and they tell you, a different perspective, a different narrative from the one that you're so used to listening to, which is basically the one in your head where you assume this is how life is going to be. It's going to be dark and it's going to be negative, until somebody says, no, it could be full of light, it could be positive. But getting from a place of disbelieving to believing, it's a process that happens. And somebody positive in your life really helps you along that process.
The only way is to individualize the pain and walk directly with someone who's struggling, and you'll see the details of what it is that got them to the place they are. And it will be complex, and there will be many reasons, and the weight of those reasons will vary from day to day. So when we get to know people in a deep way, we can start to see into the heart of why someone is where they are. And then that's the place you can start to bring healing, and that's the place where you can start to address that hunger that someone has for a better life.
The relationship with the community is one of the most important things that brings ICYA alive, because When you build a relationship with someone who has lived such a traumatized life, they sort of feel like it's like someone's hearing their voice for the first time. And you can see it on their face how much relief that is. You can hear it in their voice that they just needed to talk with somebody and they needed to get that out.
My wife and I, Jen, that we've connected with people that have no idea that there's life outside the North End. Their dream is to get their own place, have their own family, but they don't think outside the neighborhood. They don't think outside the North End. They don't think outside the city sometimes. And so their hopes and dreams stays within that, and they don't realize that there can be so much more for them.
You know, sometimes you talk to kids and you ask them what they want to be when they grow up. Some kids have never been asked that. They've never had people tell them, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, what's your dream? What's your hope? And that's one of the things that we love doing, walking alongside kids, is to give them a chance to see the world that's larger than just their block or their neighborhood, and tell them that they have just as much right to be part of that as anyone else.
One of the things we seek to do is help youth imagine that there's something in their future that's really hopeful, and that there are those gifts to give, that they have that strength in them. As kids from our neighborhood see emerging leaders leading them, they start to believe that they themselves could also one day be leaders who bring a positive impact. And so we often hear kids saying, like, when I'm older, I want to be like them, you know.
Sometimes I think about kind of like a light that you see in the eyes of a little kid, like a 6-7-year-old kid that comes around the center. And that light, I think, is about the belief that something's possible. And then sometimes you'll see that kid 5 years later and that you can tell it's gone. When there starts to be healing that happens for someone, you see a light come back on in their eyes. You start to see them think about what is possible.
I feel differently from my past. Yeah, I feel I'm more connected to Jesus than I ever am. In the last years of coming here, Step Up the program is helped me see better in the future, it's helping me succeed in life. I'm already having a long dream. It's like having my own company that's will do the same thing, like Step Up Construction, help out people who are caught up in the gang and that. I just want to have a company that will guide them the right way.
Coming out of poverty, then there's hope, there's light and joy. And I think once you are, like I always say, blessed to be a blessing, because once you are blessed, you can bless others. And that's what I do here. I put clothes around my fence and I say free clothing, and I'm able to give back to the community because the Lord has provided for us and much more. With the resources, the people, your family, the church, we all need each other to build. And like it says, it takes a village to raise a child. That's so true, but it also takes a village to raise the whole household. Some of my dreams would be that I'd own this home, that I'd have a savings account for my kids. And I think that's something that I could leave behind for them, to let them know, that God is everything. And I just want to leave a legacy of my beliefs to my children, to let them know that they are loved, that they're princes and princesses and the royalty, and that they would, feel that they can make a difference.
In a way, monetary-wise, we are still in poverty, but in family experience, we're right up there with the richest on the world, as you just seen with my family. What we lack in money, we make up for in experiences and love and time. My dreams for the future are to just raise a family in a loving home, keep becoming a better person for myself, for everyone around me, and just try to spread that. You want to continue to just try to be that role model to your kids that everyone talks about. So that's exactly what I want to do for myself, and get out of poverty. But if not, just show my kids that it's okay, and still, their dreams are still possible regardless.